Hey, what's going on, packaging community, the packaging world? This is another episode of the People of Packaging podcast. I am always shocked at the expansiveness of this industry and the incredible people I get to meet and I get to talk to. And today's episode is no exception. I am joined by Matthew Allen, and Matthew is this is a full and fun title. The Global Managing Director, maybe a global, that's a big difference. A or the Matthew. We're going to get to the bottom of this after the intro. Global Managing Director of Consulting, Training, and Sustainability at NSF. We're going to talk all things food packaging, materials, sustainability, all of it right after the intro. Let's get going.
Hey, good evening or good morning or good afternoon. I don't know if that, do you say good afternoon? Yeah, that's a word. Whatever time you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. It's considered TV, right? I'm guessing. We're live on the YouTube. Live on the YouTube. Not in Belarus, though. Told. For paper, you have to flatten it before you receive. I'm guessing they don't crush everything before they're collecting paper. Like 3D objects get routed away. If you leave your paper like a box, if you leave it assembled, the likelihood that it's going to be the back goes down.
Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to the People of Packaging. Mr. Allen, how are you today, sir?
Hi, great to meet you, Adam.
First of all, you're looking wonderful. The bald,
We're really aligned.
we are locked in on the doppelganger. But so you are basically my brother from another mother, but Canadian, eh? Right? Like you
Exactly.
You love Tim Hortons. You drink your milk in a bag, which we'll talk about maybe.
Right.
How do you milk in a bag? Milk in standard containers. But thanks for joining the podcast. I'm really I've been excited for this episode. I met some people, by the way. That's how this all came about at Expo West.
Mm-hmm.
I had all sorts of questions about certifications and not only food safety, but also sustainability certifications. And they said, Matthew is the guy.
Apparently. Good enough.
So,
okay.
So here we go. So the first question is the most important. What percentage of the books on the bookshelf behind you would you say that you've read?
They are 99% my partners.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. The only credit I get is I built the bookshelf.
That's amazing. Do you have a favorite back there?
I have like there's John Irving is a great one, and I have a bunch of, because I was in the Navy, I have a bunch of books that are like old Navy stories, and they're great, so they get you totally lost.
Got it. Canadian Navy, U.S. Navy?
No, old British stuff.
No, I'm saying for you though. You said
Canadian Navy, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe you relocated to Canada or whatever, but
I've been a Canadian boy through and through.
Got it. Okay. Well, this is going to be great. So first of all, Matthew, just tell somebody tuning in, who are you? I want to get into the NSF, but I think it's cool. We're a people first podcast. So a little bit about your background. You were in the Canadian Navy. You built a bookshelf. We know some critical things about you.
So actually, the Navy part links to my schooling. So we have what's called a Royal Military College here in Canada. It's like your Annapolis or West Point. And so there I got to do chemical and materials engineering, which turned into environmental engineering, which got me into sustainability. So that sort of covers the whole span of topics today. But I spent about 15 years as a quality environmental health and safety expert doing engineering out there in the world, generally consulting services, projects, a lot of work with chemicals, regulatory approvals, and some disasters and explosions and things like that. And then entered into what we call the TIC, the Testing, Inspection, Certification industry, or what we call the TIC industry. So NSF and many other acronyms occupy this industry. And that's where you would get your lab, your audit for certification, and a bit of consultation, or what we call advisory or assurance, sort of wrapped around it. But that can be, ISO 9001 for quality management systems, all the way to some of the food certifications we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
But yeah, further on me, I actually live in Canada. We have NSF has an office here in Guelph, Ontario, next to Guelph University, which is our big sort of food university per se, and a big agricultural. But anyways, food science is why we're there. Actually live in a hobby farm out in the country. We have lots of animals, and I have a bunch of kids that are just off to university. So it's a busy time of life, and work keeps me grounded, let's say. Yeah.
That's amazing. How so Ontario, um, I believe I'm terrible with my Canadian geography, but most Americans are.
Yeah.
Um,
If
but
you're in Michigan and go to Detroit, you just hit Windsor, and then you're in Canada, in Ontario.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so are you
Easy.
close to the Michigan border then? That's what I was going to ask.
Exactly. If here from Toronto would be our big city, CN Tower, I think. 4-hour drive from Toronto to Detroit. Ann Arbor's just outside of it. Ann Arbor's where our HQ is. So it's actually a great location for our office.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I will actually, as of this recording, I'm going to be in Detroit at a company called Landau Packaging this week. So I'm heading
Okay.
there. And my late grandmother was actually born, and I want to say she was even raised in Windsor, Ontario. I
Okay.
haven't been there, but I
Yeah.
have a little bit of a connection. I'm
All right.
trying.
That's enough. We'll take that.
We'll take it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. And I'm a big Jamal Murray fan, Canadian basketball legend. Maybe not
Okay,
legend.
that'll count too. We welcome you now.
Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to be accepted in to the crew. So let's talk very basic here. NSF, what does it stand for? Like literally, what does it stand for? And what's really the purpose behind NSF? So we'll start high
Right.
level. We're going to drill down into packaging here very quickly.
So first off, it's an 80-year-old story, and if you think back, in that period being the 40s, you've got, people had access to dining in restaurants and public swimming pools, and a lot of things became commonplace. Um, you know, where society started to get out and dine and enjoy, and proliferation of fast food and different models of delivering food. Grocery stores changed from farmers markets to mass retail, and food industrial processing and packaging was industrialized. So, but even more simpler than that, think about soda fountains. So there's this drink invented that everyone was crazy for,
Hmm.
and all these restaurants popped up, and there was a need to maintain that all that equipment being carbonated and water based and full of sugar, it was causing some problems, let's say. So, they sought to develop a safety standard to ensure the quality of the product, the food product that came from these places. And so NSF was created, actually out of the university in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, very close ties. It was sort of had an academic scientific research route, and they developed the first standard to ensure the safety of this product that everyone en masse at once was getting access to. Then it evolved to be the topic of sanitation, which is the National Sanitation Foundation, NSF. Think of a public swimming pool. In the past, people would just go swim in the creek, and then we created these common bathing areas. And then there was a need to standardize and certify the safety of the filters, the water quality, all the additives, even the plastic that was used in making them, or the piping and the solder to make sure the lead didn't get into the drinking water or the soda fountain or the swimming pool. So really, it was born out of the need to create scientifically based standards that could be then used through regulatory devices to kind of get out there to all the different US states. So for a while it had a kind of nuclear focus on the US and those topics. Over the years it's grown to be in 110 countries over 80 years, taking us up to about 40 clients over those 80 years, but extending from sort of water filtration to food products, and then now all the way into life sciences and medical devices and the like. So we have this mission, and it's a very obsessively mission-focused company, which is what really differentiates it from anywhere else I've worked so far. Is this to improve and protect human and planet health. So we kind of see, what goes into our bodies and on our bodies, and the impact we have on the world around us. And so if there's a standard or an audit or a certification or a test or consulting needed to get people ready for that, that's kind of what we're all about.
And
About
um,
3,000 people.
okay, I
Yeah,
was actually going to ask that.
yeah.
So, I talk about this actually quite a bit on my show and just in general, which is the connectedness between something like food waste and sustainability, right? Like, and this is sort of the where packaging tends to be the superstar, right? Is like
Mhm.
if you can safely transport food to get from where it's made to somebody, and it's done in a way that is safe and sanitary and it does not spoil, I guess,
Right.
during that journey. It's it's a great thing for everybody involved. It's good for business, it's good for the planet, it's good for the health of people in general, right? I mean, there's probably really terrible food that's bad for people to eat. That's not the point of my podcast. There's plenty of other content out there about those things, but I think that companies like NSF are these companies that exist that I would imagine, though there's 3,000 employees, the vast majority of humans love the impact of NSF, but have no idea that you
Hmm.
exist, right? Like
It's
they
so
just
true.
operate in a world now which is assumed that these standards are there. So that when I go into a grocery store and I buy a product and I bring it home, if I buy a steak and I'm going to go
Right,
grill it, I just assume that it's good. It's fine. I can
right.
there's a lot of confidence that is instilled through the regulatory process that I
Hmm.
think we just take for granted now. That didn't always used to be there.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's cool that you have this background as a kind of a material scientist. Is that a way
Hmm.
to put it?
Yeah, I'd say materials engineer. Yeah, chemical
Materials.
and materials. So yeah, what goes in, what comes out of them.
So in your day-to-day role then, are you mostly helping, say, a food company, in this case, the company making the steak or the chicken, or are you helping the packaging company that's making the film and the box and that, or is it a bit of both? What does that
It's
look
a
like?
bit of both, and we call it the farm to the fork. So we'll spend as much time on the agricultural audit that allows them to be suppliers of eggs, of meat, of milk, etc. Then in the processing and the manufacturing stage to convert it to a product, and then there's the after where you're packaging it and then distributing it. You've got the cold chain, that refrigerates it to get to the retail environment at the grocery store, or if the endpoint is a fast food or quick service restaurant or a slow service restaurant. We kind of appear in different ways throughout that whole end to end chain.
Mm,
But I give an example. You're very right. It's not a company name that people recognize unless you are a chef. If you're a pastry chef, you know the logo because you see it, 10 times an hour. I have a couple of kids that work in fast food service restaurants, and they, quickly came home and said, "Dad, everything I touch at work has NSF on the bottom of the spatula, the little grease trap, the pan, the fridge, the water cooler, the ice maker," because those food service industries have a higher, as you say, regulated, let's say elevated safety standard, thank goodness.
yeah.
And it's mandated that if it's supplied specifically where you've got large food retailers that franchise out or they have three stores in every city, the need for them to have repeatability and predictability in their materials that are going out that are contacting food is super super important. But you touched on something interesting. The idea of sustainability is a really cool gateway into the topic because of this example. So if you once had old school potato chips, they had a really thick package, and they may have done different things with how much air was in the chip package to protect the chips. But let's just talk about the thickness of the package. If you put 100 of those in boxes and 100 boxes in an 18 wheeler and sent it down the highway, that had no real issue in the 60s, 70s, 80s. But then in the 2000s, 2010s, now we're concerned about the fuel that transport truck consumes while delivering those packages. You can only do so much to reduce the weight of the potatoes, but the packaging takes a hit. So we had all these customers that had spent all this time on the packaging safety of their thick packaging, who've now had to make their packaging thinner to reduce the weight, to minimize the carbon footprint of the transport. So all the testing and all the food safety had to be redone every time they revamp these packaging and the films and all those things. And then the idea that nowadays it's not just enough to have your packaging be light, you want it to be biodegradable or compostable, as you mentioned. So it's kind of funny how like 4 or 5 elements of what we do touches one topic. um, and sustainability tends to have linked up a whole bunch of these really traditional chemical safety or ingredients of concern or regulatory compliance. It all kind of comes home to nest in the sustainability topic.
Yeah. I especially today where you have like all of this various pressure now. It was public kind of consumer pressure for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a lot of brands were sort of like, hey, the cost of change is really expensive. People just don't realize, I don't know, maybe I'm just hungry, but I'll stick with the meat topic.
Mm-hmm.
For example, moving from a polystyrene tray to an alternative tray isn't just, hey, let's make the change. There's not only your side, the on the NSF side with the compliance and the regulations and how is that meat going to interact, but there's also the filling side, the machinery, the
Mm-hmm.
equipment, the source. There's a lot of things. So there was kind of like, well, regulations, maybe government can come in and say like, hey, this material's bad, can't use it. Well, then the market sort of pushed back and said that you can't just demand us to make something happen that can't happen, right? So we saw that.
Right.
But now that we have EPR combined with tariffs, and we talked about that this morning on the Packaging Today show.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, it just seems like now this topic is like you can't really skirt around it anymore. And I would imagine for an organization like NSF, you're seeing a lot more of these requests come in for, hey, we just got our EPR bill for Oregon and we need to
Right.
lightweight this.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, but you can't just rubber stamp stuff, or else we're going to have problems on the other side, which
Right.
are health problems and food waste problems and things that we don't want. It's awful to have those
Right.
things. Uh,
Especially when you think globally too, like, we would hope that safety is a global norm, a global concept, whereas regulatory compliance differs by jurisdiction. And then different jurisdictions mandate different standards. And we tend to say compliance to a regulation or conformance to a standard. So the challenge when you have supply chain pressures, whether it's due to tariff, issues or not, but the global supply chain since COVID have had to reconfigure. And then so all these products that once were set up to meet the requirement of Texas now may be sold in Germany or maybe sold in Kuala Lumpur. All of a sudden, they have to comply with all these different regulatory compliance needs who demand different standards. And the language has to change. And packaging is where we convey the information to the end consumer, right? And nowadays, it's often one magical type of packaging that does everything, protects the food, allows oxygen to go in and out to prevent it from going stale or rancid. And then we have to have all this information. And different countries are demanding different things out of the information they require. So
yep.
that's why I think packaging is a kind of a fairly simple topic that people take for granted, but people are completely ignorant to how much rolls up into it. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And by the way, dogs are welcome on this show. I just hope you know that. Yeah, I mean, like you described, a flex, like a stand-up pouch or a flexible packaging there. That's both, I call it primary and secondary packaging. Whereas before you had your primary packaging with me, which was maybe just like a plastic bag, and then there was a secondary, which was the printing. And of course, we had what's in the packaging world, kind of the famous Nestle problem, where there was migration from the inks onto the inside of the bag, which then caused all sorts of problems. So this is a topic that I think we could really get down a rabbit hole on. pretty quickly, which I would enjoy. But we're actually coming up here on 20 minutes of already hanging out, which is great. Um,
Perfect.
so I have a couple of questions here to wrap it up. The
Yep.
first question is, when I was at Expo West, I know the folks that I spoke to there from NSF were mentioning compostability and trying to wade into the waters of certifying or helping people navigate or brands navigate what is certified either home or industrially compostable. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but you mentioned you live on a hobby farm. I'm going to guess that you do some sort of home composting there. Would that be fair to say?
At an enormous scale.
Yeah.
I have horses and everything. Yeah. So that idea of circularity, taking a product and then preparing it for reuse or letting it degrade and it being able to just sort of go into the waste chain is
Yeah.
very prevalent in my life. You've hit it right in the head.
Yeah. So how then would a brand navigate the, like, for example, what is home compostable for Matthew Allen in Canada on a hobby farm I would imagine is going to differ from Adam Peak living in a suburban community in outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, right? Like, to me, it just is like, how do we help brands understand and even to certify, to give some confidence to somebody that says, hey, this is home compostable. I'll give you another example. The industrially compostable people, I was talking to Justin Garrity at Veterans Compost, and he's like, honestly, it's annoying for me because I just want to compost waste. I don't necessarily want packaging because then I can't sell that as organic compost. I have to pick
Mm-hmm.
out all of the packaging
Right.
and it degrades the other compost. So there's all these tricky things I feel like within the world of compostable packaging. And when you said hobby farm, I was like, I bet I'm talking to the right person. I bet this guy
Yeah.
is very passionate about this.
Yeah. So I think the idea of, on the countertop in your condo versus me having this massive, let's say, animal compost pile that'll eat anything, no problem. But also a lot of it's based upon, how degradable is it in the landfill system as well. So you've got these different kind of user case studies, right? So we are, as I said, one of the big things NSF does develop standards. So one of the ones we're looking at is compostability, particularly for food packaging, because if you went for a fast food meal, you can't believe how much waste you leave with, right? So there's more and more pressure. Uh, the consumers are applying pressure to know that if they throw all that in the garbage, at least it has an endpoint that's not going to, be there 1,000 years from now. So that's another hot topic. Again, it's a bit of a linchpin topic that brings a bunch of things together because, even compostable products are going to change the way that chemicals could migrate from the packaging into the food, just like the weight of it, just like the degradability of it. So we're a bit nerdy around the topic, but it's definitely another good one to look at. And again, just as we mentioned, the idea that packages are where we convey the safety information, and so there's so much compliance that goes into the packaging. So I
Yeah.
think you found a very hot topic, my friend.
Well, maybe we'll have to do this again,
Good.
and talk compostability and NSF certifications around that, because I think that is it's a fascinating topic. I'll leave you with my final question, and then you can kind of let people know where they can get in touch with you, learn more about NSF, which is, what's something or a couple of things you wish everybody knew about NSF? You could tell every human being in the world and just implant this in their brain about NSF. What would that one? You can give a couple if you'd like.
I think the magic is that we've built the standards that are now the foundation of a lot of the safety and regulation that everyone takes for granted. So when we come around to a topic, a news story like, your plastic cutting boards will generate microplastics, it often leads back to us. So it's almost ironic that these really hot topics now in the media, food recalls, the risk of using microplastics and the influence on your body and health, these topics are pretty hot and central to what we do. So I think that's the cool thing. We're okay not being front and center all the time. I do wish the world, will become more and more aware of what we do to protect human and planet health. But I think it's just the fun of working with a bunch of scientists and engineers that are this is their main focus is why I think we've been able to build over 80 years. So I appreciate the discussion today, and it's cool to know there's a podcast on this topic, which is so central to what we do. So I'm definitely going to spread the word internally because we'll get you more followers. But
I love
I
it.
appreciate it, Adam.
Yeah, well, thank you, Matthew. How do people learn more about NSF or even connect up with you?
Perfect. I think nsf.org is the easy place to go. You'll see all our services. There's a way to contact us right there. If you need work around training, sustainability, or consulting, you'll find a contact us box right there. So totally easy. But I appreciate it. And we sort of put all our stuff there so everyone has one place to go.
That's amazing. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for coming on and chatting a little bit. I think we'll have more NSF segments either here or I do co-host Packaging Today with Evelio and Corey, which is a daily packaging talk show. So there's a lot. We do
Amazing.
we're doing a lot, trying to spread the word about our industry. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
All the best. Thanks, Adam.